Hello there.
The fight is done. We lost. Stay hidden.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel and time for another episode of Luke's TV reviews. This time round, well, the long-awaited return of a beloved Star Wars character has finally finished its run on Disney+, but did it live up to what some may say may be an impossible hype to reach? This is my review for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And of course it goes without saying, but spoiler warning, I'm going to be talking about the whole show, including the finale as well. The last time we saw Obi-Wan Kenobi was following his dramatic showdown with Anakin on Mustafar, and to protect the life of Anakin's son Luke, devoted himself to living in hiding on Tatooine, watching over the boy. However, when a threat soon looms large, calling Kenobi to duty to rescue Anakin's daughter, Leia, he must regain his strength and attempt to move on from the past to save her. Yet, lurking in the distance is the presence of the Inquisitors, as well as Lord Vader himself. Now, we might as well start with some of my positives for the show, because as a whole in this review, this is a positive review, despite what some of my comments possibly later in this video may lead you to believe. But yeah, I want to get it across, I was a fan of the show. Firstly, as someone who grew up with the prequels, this show has scratched an unbearable itch that I've been having for over 15 years now. Getting to see Ewan McGregor return as Obi-Wan and him fit back into character so naturally as if he hasn't been away for all this time was such an unbelievable delight to see. And it was also a nice touch to take Kenobi on this journey of self-discovery. It makes sense that Ben is blaming himself for what happened to Anakin and is harboring this tremendous amount of guilt. He's practically shut himself off from the Force, living only to watch over Luke, keeping his solemn promise from episode 3. But not only is Ewan back, Hayden Christensen is also back as Vader. Now, we all know that Christensen got a pretty nasty rap surrounding his time within the prequels, but aside from a few bumps, to me, he will always be Anakin Skywalker. So to see him have his redemption moment and crush it as Vader, again, it was just such a pleasure. And the show is at its best when it is about and between Kenobi and Vader. Christensen got Vader's imposing physique down to a T, and he's not just a cameo. He is the villain of the show. Well, kinda. We'll touch on that in a second. Whereas Kenobi is buried with guilt, Vader is furious that Obi-Wan is still alive, viewing that as a failure. In the third episode, we see Vader dishing out his own form of revenge as he decimates Kenobi before making him suffer in flames, similar to Anakin on Mustafar. And we see the level of desperation in the fifth episode, as well as Vader's strength, as he stops one of the escape shuttles with the power of the Force and tears it to shreds, which, yeah, that was pretty freaking cool. And of course, as the show promised when it was first announced, there is a big rematch to contend with. Well, technically two, although the one in the final episode is probably the one that most people are going to be talking about. The lightsaber battle itself was exciting. It's by no means on the same level of excellence as their duel on Mustafar, but it was still very thrilling. And it delivered on the emotional climax as we see Vader's split mask and the human face of Anakin beneath, as his voice is glitching out and any hope that Kenobi had of any shred of Anakin still remaining completely vanished in that moment. That scene in particular, I thought that McGregor and Christensen did some of their best work that they have done in the Star Wars universe. It was a fantastic way to give the Anakin and Obi-Wan story its own little epilogue. Also, and this one was quite a surprise considering the marketing, but we get some adventures with young Leia. Vivien Lyra Blair was ridiculously good as Leia, and at times I sat there and thought, oh my god, they have found the perfect young Carrie Fisher. And I think that if Carrie Fisher was still around today, I think she'd be overjoyed with what Vivien Lyra Blair has done in this show. Oh, and it did give me goosebumps to see Liam Neeson return as Qui-Gon Jinn, even if it was just so brief. And in a way, I guess, tacked on at the end. Now, that's the good. The Vader and Obi-Wan stuff, all gold. Didn't disappoint. What did disappoint, though, was pretty much the rest of the narrative. For me, the vow that Kenobi takes at the end of Revenge of the Sith to live the rest of his life almost as a hermit to protect Luke was one of the most selfless acts a character has ever made in Star Wars, and really defined his character to be the only way that he thought he could pay penance for allowing Anakin to be corrupted by the dark side. So for this show to basically bend that promise and excite fans by getting Ewan McGregor back in the row, and excite fans by having Vader come back and they're going to square off and have another epic lightsaber fight, it's all entertaining, but I can't help but feel that it lessens his vow and the impact that that has on his character from episode 3 through to then episode 4. And I think because much of his character throughout the saga is tied to that decision, and they have to stick to it somewhat, there are lots of moments within this limited series that feel like they're just dilly-dallying around because you've got to get to that end conclusion anyway. Look, I will never ever complain about getting new Star Wars content. I just wish that they had thought this through maybe a little bit more and thought about it in terms of the bigger picture rather than just an immediate way to excite fans. As for the story itself, it worked better when you had this cat and mouse game between Obi-Wan and the kind of, well, I'm gonna refer to them as rebels, but they're not really rebels. They're just like a ragtag group of people who want to help the Jedi and the Empire. Episodes 5 and 6 were easily the best of the run, and then you have episodes 1 and 2 that served as a really solid start to kick things off. For me, though, it was episodes 3 and 4 where I could tell that things were beginning to run out of steam. The character of Reva has seemingly split a lot of the Star Wars fandom, and sadly has also shone a light on the cesspool that some so-called Star Wars fans reside in, where they attack her character because they claim ridiculous theories such as identity politics and forced diversity. For me, yeah, Reva wasn't as strong as a character as I would have liked her to be, but I think Moses Ingram did a fantastic job of working with what she was given. I dig the concept of a former youngling surviving Order 66 and infiltrating the Inquisitors to get her revenge on Vader, and that in itself could have been a fascinating character arc. And in episode 5, it feels like all of that has come to a light and it's gonna pay off. Reva tries to go up against Vader and unsurprisingly is no match, and in a way, her potential death in that moment could have served a purpose about how revenge in any form only causes more pain and suffering. But then, in the final episode, she's back and hunting Luke after learning of his discovery, and then she ends up coming to her senses and just leaves. Personally, given her character arc up until this moment, I felt like it was a very anticlimactic way, I guess, to try and keep her in the series, if we want to call back on her character later down the line, but I personally just don't think it made sense of the character arc that they had set up until this point. As for more of the technical accomplishments, I thought that Deborah Chow's direction was a little mixed. Some of the fight sequences are gorgeously shot, whereas others, and also just normal straight dialogue scenes, had this really odd handheld camera quality to it, and it didn't feel like Star Wars. I'm not really sure what the intention was specifically in those dialogue scenes, and it just came off a little bit flat, as if they were trying to give it a different feel, but in doing so, you lost the smoothness that we see in a lot of Star Wars films and other shows. John Williams also returns to score the main Obi-Wan theme for the show. Look, the dude is a legend. He will forever be one of, if not the greatest film composers of all time. The theme itself is fine. It's not his best work, but we're still getting John Williams composing for Star Wars, and you've just got to enjoy it while you can. Instead, for the rest of the show, we've got composer Natalie Holt, who I was really looking forward to handling a Star Wars property, because I thought that she did such an amazing job with the music for Loki. But the score for this, it just kind of felt a little generic, and didn't really match the grandiose scale that you would expect in Star Wars. I think it was always going to be difficult for this Obi-Wan Kenobi show to live up to such the unbelievable hype. When it works, it's brilliant. It's such a pleasure to see Ewan and Hayden back, and much like the prequels, the show is at its best when dealing with that dynamic. But in amongst amazing lightsaber battles and nostalgia for the prequels, ultimately, I'm not really sure that this was a story that needed to be told. In a way, it adds to the character of Kenobi, but in doing so, it also takes away much of his important sacrifice. All that being said though, I am all for more shows featuring Vader. I feel like the period of time where the Empire are at full reign and Vader is at his full potential, I mean, we obviously got that in the main trilogy, but I wouldn't mind if we saw more of Vader absolutely decimating whoever he comes across, because they haven't let us down so far. So overall, I'm going to give Obi-Wan Kenobi a 7.5 out of 10. Those were my thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let me know, have you had a chance to see the show yet? What did you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And my question to you, I want to know, going forward with Star Wars now, would you like to see them keep revisiting familiar faces and characters that we know and love and exploring new adventures with them? Or would you prefer brand new characters and brand new adventures discovering parts of the Star Wars universe that we have yet to see? I feel like I'm leaning more onto the new, especially with the talk about Taika Waititi's film and how it's going to explore something that we just haven't seen in Star Wars. I think that those possibilities excite me a little more than revisiting characters who we've already been fortunate enough to spend the time with. But that is all we have time for today, so thank you very much for watching. May the Force be with you, and I will see you in the next video. Hello, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure to click that like button, and if you aren't already, click that subscribe button too.